Welcome to the ReEvolve Media Revolution podcast. I am your host, Jordan Lewis. We've got a great interview for you today with Canadian hip hop artist Arlo Maverick. Thank you for joining us. And before we jump into the interview, I just wanted to briefly catch you up on where we are at with the podcast and with ReEvolve Media as a whole. This episode is effectively the first in our third season. We've come a long way thus far, interviewing over 30 artists nationwide and talking through their various perspectives while attempting to shine a light on the overall human condition and psyche. Our goal has always been to incite conversations and thoughts that breach through comfort zones and allow for critical thinking on areas that don't often see the attention. Although we are far from the goals that we had set out prior to launching the podcast, we are exactly where we need to be because this is one of our core tenets. You would think that something well thought out and with good intentions would thrive with a bit of persistence, but that just isn't the world we live in. I remember my younger days as an artist. I would always be writing, then recording, then releasing the track that was going to be my breakout song. The one that was going to take me to the top and release me from my life of trial and error, struggle and failure, having that overt optimism eventually meeting cold, hard reality. Yes, I remember those days very well because they are similar to current times, except for one key condition that has completely altered everything relating to it. And that is simply how I look at it. There was never error, there was never failure, and in fact, the cold hard reality in reaching the finality of any experience is the realization that the journey was more prominent to character than the result was. Now, I refuse the destination. There is no goal. There's nothing but the foundation and the next steps. The focus is on what needs to be done based on what has been built so far. The goal has always been success, but now so is the method by which we operate. ReEvolve Media now has a beat store and available merchandise, which was a goal that we set out several months ago. So please check that out on our website. But I don't view the delay as a failure because I know that in a few months, both platforms will completely evolve from what they currently are, and they would have been completely different had they been released those set months ago. And I'm proud of where we are. It's amazing to be able to look back on how things used to be and relate them to how things are now. It's fantastic to speculate on how things could be as well, but it is very important to realize that things are the way they are for a reason. And with this realization, your universe can change completely. Let's say what's up to Arlo Maverick. All right, we're good to go. What is up, everyone? I'm here with Arlo Maverick. Arlo, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. And is it safe to call you Arlo? I actually didn't even get your real name. I don't know if this is your handle or what.
Yeah, no, it's okay to call me Arlo. It's a shortened form of my real name. But yeah, it's so either or
Either
works.
or, what's your real name? Just
Marlon.
for the sorry?
Marlon.
Marlon, okay.
Yeah,
Marlon, welcome to the show, brother. So you're out of Edmonton, Alberta.
that's correct.
You've got a combination of kind of like soulful hip hop with some electronic and pop notes. You spread a message of honesty, loyalty, integrity, inspiration, and progress. Man, all these things that we kind of like need in this day and age. And dude, I'm so happy we're having this interview right now because you're the type of artist that I personally like I look for or that I've vibed with in the past.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad that we were able to connect, and I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, dude. I gotta mention that because before we got on the record, we had at least 15 minutes of solid, like should have been on the record conversations, but we're gonna bring it all up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to your music, man, you give me vibes that just so the audience can kind of get a grip of what your music style is, or at least what I've perceived of it. But you've got this kind of influence that I take from like Childish Gambino or like J. Cole or the people that don't just do music for the sake of music, but actually there's a purpose to the words. There's a purpose to each bar. There's a purpose
Yes.
there's a message.
Yes, totally. Well, J. Cole, Kendrick, Childish Gambino, anybody who's, and it's not to say that the music is always like message driven, but I always find a way to present life because I think that at the end of the day, if you listen to a J. Cole track, if you listen to a Kendrick track, if you listen to Childish Gambino, Joey Badass, like a lot of these artists are just like creating music that speaks to everyday situations, but finding a way to make it relatable, but at the same time, though, making it so that it doesn't feel like it's preaching at any. So
That's the
I
word, bro.
try to find that balance, you know?
You try and make it so that people perceive it as art first, and then when they dig deeper, they find the meanings, at least within
Yes.
themselves. Yeah.
Yes, totally, totally, totally.
That's dope, bro. So the way that I can see it, or just from what I've seen, is it seems like you started releasing music around 2015. Is that correct?
Yes, as a solo artist around 2015. Prior to that, I was with a group called Politic Live.
Baltic Live. Ooh, tell me
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. So Politic Live was myself, Dirk Gritty, Big and Ulti, and DJ Sunny Grimes. We put out 3 projects: Notoriety, Adaptation, and Ellipsis. We were
And these are all
fortunate.
homies out of Edmonton.
Yes, 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 yes. All Edmonton based from the West End. And yeah, we put out 3 projects that received critical acclaim both in Canada and in the US. We charted both in Canada and in the US.
Bro,
We were able to do tours. We were able to shoot music videos that got on TV before like YouTube introduced and like shut down all the old formats of like yeah, whether it be like Much Music or MTV. But yeah, we got award nominations and so on and so forth. And it was a cool run, but at the same time though, like the group didn't. It's not to say that we've disbanded or anything like that. It's just that life took everyone into different places. And but for me, I still wanted to explore music, and I wanted to yeah, continue to kind of just be that artist who's able to because if you listen to the majority of the music that's coming out right now, unfortunately there isn't a message, and I
unfortunately,
feel
no.
that like as opposed to me being one of those people who critiques it and has yeah, as opposed to being someone who critiques it, I felt it was important to try to be the change. And I know that sounds kind of hokey, but the Gandhi quote is, "Be the change in the world that you want to see." And so, whether it be through music, whether it be through mentorship, whether it be through just leading by example, I always try to be what I want to see, you know.
For
And
sure.
that's not to say that I don't make mistakes, because we're all human, but I do think that if we saw more Kendricks, if we saw more Coles, then I think that hip hop would be very different. And that's not for me to rag on someone else's experiences, because like we all have our stories that we're sharing. We all are inviting people into our world and saying, these are my experiences. This is what my people go through, so on and so forth. But I do think that we do have to be very mindful of how we communicate that message, because if you look at someone like Jay-Z has always had a message of like, yo, like I sold drugs. And but he also has lines like, Hove did that so you wouldn't have to go through that, you know? So it's just like
Yeah,
giving that honest perspective in the sense of, I did this, I'm not proud of it, but I'm giving you these stories for you not to go down the same path. And I think the cool thing with hip hop is that it's grown to become this thing that you don't have to rap about just selling drugs. You don't have to rap about just whatever it may be. Like you could tell your stories, and like there's so many topics, and there's so many topics that are untapped in hip hop, which is so crazy, because as human beings, we're so multidimensional. We go through all these different experiences, but it takes a really great artist to actually rap about these things and make it fascinating. Like you look at Kendrick's song Duckworth, like he's rapping about how his mentor and his father are connected in a way that end up creating him the MC. And it's like something as trivial as that, he found a way to make it interesting. And I think that as hip hop artists, or just artists, period, that's what we have to do. But I think that within the genre of hip hop, like we need to explore more and kind of dive deeper into these stories of like, yo, like I'm trying to give an example, but I can't think of anything right now.
that's
But
all
you get
good,
what I'm
bro.
saying, though, right?
I get what you're saying, man. I think I can boil it down to at least take one point out of it, is that it's really tough to speak to the masses when you're trying to communicate with the individual, because you can say a whole bunch of good stuff and everybody's down for it, but the second you say something that, like, because we're all aware of the massive divides that are happening in the world, the U.S.,
Yes.
even in Canada, the second that you say something that turns one person off, and it could be as simple as like what you said, like, oh yeah, I grew up selling drugs, but now I don't do that. That you've just lost an entire division of people who will like
People.
no, just blow you off because of that. So you got to find a way to put it artistically that doesn't directly say that, but insinuates it.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I think it's to speak to 2 points of what you just said. Part of it is not glorifying something, and that could be the good or the bad, right?
Exactly.
And I think that the second thing is that we all have to understand is that your music is not always going to resonate with everyone. And I think that sometimes as artists, we want our music to be appreciated by everybody. But even someone as big as Drake, not all his music resonates with every single person out there. And even
For
Michael
sure.
Jackson went,
We know Drake got booed off stage just a couple
yeah,
years ago, right?
exactly. And it was. There's always a lesson to be learned from everything. And I think that if you're an
Exactly.
independent artist looking at that, then you have to understand that like your music is not going to be liked by everyone. So appreciate those who actually do mess with your music.
Yo,
You
that is
know?
the word. If the number one artist, hip hop artist in Canada can be booed off stage, why would you be pissed off if somebody like doesn't like your music as an independent artist?
Yeah, and the thing about it too is that should show you to appreciate your fans even more, man. Like, and
Exactly.
it's so crazy because like if the weird thing with music is that like when you have your niche and you're just starting out and like that niche, they'll love you, they'll support like everything you do, like they're holding on to every single word. They're like, because I remember when Cole first came out, like I was trying to introduce Cole to everybody and everyone's just like,
Yes.
nah, I'm not really feeling
You
him,
and
blah
me
blah blah.
both.
And I'm just like, how do you not feel this dude, right? And what's crazy about it is that what I didn't realize, and it's not to say I didn't realize, but it's just one of those things where you're just so passionate as a fan that one of the things I wasn't paying attention to was the fact that eventually, as Cole gets bigger, he's going to have to get to the point where he's going to have to, well, he doesn't have to, but a lot of times artists will then feel the need to change their music, right? And we saw with the sideline stories how he completely changed up what he was doing from the come up, the warm up, Friday Night
Yep.
Lights, where those were so pure. And I think that as like there's a pro and a con to that because of the fact that like as J. Cole began to get bigger within the music industry, his music began to change, which then some of his diehard fans were just like, yeah, like we'll stay with him forever. And some people were just like, it's not the same Cole. It doesn't feel the same. So I think
Yep.
that there's always going to be, I think the only artist of in recent times that's been able to walk the line and not have anybody quite, because even Drake, like you listen to Drake's earlier stuff, a lot of people like he's not the same, right? But the one artist that has been able to maintain like that same consistency and just get better and like have been able to attract mainstream fans but still keep his core fans is probably Kendrick, you know? Because like Good Kid, Mad City, core fans are still there, new fans come. To Pimp a Butterfly, core fans are still there, new fans come. Untitled Master, core fans are still there, new fans come. Damn, same thing. Where a lot of
Man.
other artists, like as they begin to ascend, all of a sudden you have people who are just like, well, it's not, it doesn't feel the same, it doesn't sound the same, they're not rapping about the same thing. So to circle it back to our conversation here, as artists, I think that we have to be mindful of the fact that there's something that sometimes we give away who we are and stop being as poignant with our message and avoid certain things or try to twist things or change things up in order to reach a larger audience. But as we begin to get that larger audience, sometimes we lose those fans who actually cared about what we're doing before anybody else cared about what we were doing, you know?
See, I'm curious about that, and I think it's worth talking more about because, especially when you bring it up in the light of J. Cole and Kendrick, and I'm even drawing parallels to Childish Gambino here because with J. Cole and Childish Gambino, as the music went on, as their careers went on, and they hit this point of success where their music is being heard worldwide. Essentially, you can talk to anyone and they've heard of them, and
Yeah,
then they start to take on this image of I don't know, it's less appealing to the masses, but here's something
that's
that
true. That's true.
Here's something that you said it's something that you said that kind of I don't know if about this, but they're losing some of their original fans. But for me, it seems like they're trying to appeal more instead of to the masses, to the individual. I'm not 100% sure because
Mm,
both of these individuals, J. Cole and Childish Gambino, even their appearance over the time has changed. Like they're both go rocking the beards, they're both rocking the
yeah.
long hair, they're both doing like they're showing some skin now and then. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing with Childish Gambino is that like this dude when he came in like was more of a clean cut and he never
Oh
really
yeah.
like yeah like so he but then as things got like he's now rocking the dad bod. It's just like yo
Yep.
dude, you know, and it's like
And
to
he's
me
using it
like
for the message.
exactly. But the cool thing about that though is that and I think that Cole got to a point where once he did Forest Hills Drive, that's when he was just like, okay, like to to give context to what I was saying is that during the first couple albums that Cole had put out, I feel that he was put under that pressure to become like this megastar. And then he even said that his music began to change once he did Forest Hill Drive because he had to like kind of just like ground himself. And then that's when he started to grow the hair out. and all of a sudden you see him with the dreadlocks now. He's not worried about dressing fancy or anything like that. The guy's riding through New York on his bike. Like, and to
Yeah.
me, I appreciate that more because it's just like we have this thing of putting artists on pedestals and idolizing them where J. Cole has said, I'm a man of the people, not above but equal. And when I hear things like that, it's like, yo, I relate to that more than someone who wants to seem almost like a deity and then
Yeah, I'm
wants
the
to be
best.
worshipped. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, with Cole and even with Kendrick as well too. Kendrick went from being a very clean cut dude to now like having the like having braids and like eventually he's gonna probably come out with dreadlocks as well too. You know, and I think that as you said, the appearance speaks more to their appearance now speaks more towards just an organic and authentic, just honest, stripped down. This is who
Man.
I am type of parents, you know?
Dude, this is so crazy because it actually relates to like modern day the shit that's going on in current events. Because as soon as you start focusing on those people that actually that you resonate with and the messages that you want to send, and you start losing those people who were kind of just vibing with the I don't know, the mainstream elements of it, those
Yeah.
people who you lose start to now shit on your new stuff, and then maybe certain people who still vibe with it start to be like, oh, has he changed? They start to consider it and
Mm,
start to think like, and they start to diminish your character. And so
yeah.
it's not, you're not just, oh man, what a trip.
And it's the crazy thing about it too is that it's hard to please everybody. And
It's
as
impossible.
it's impossible because like you may do one thing right for one person, but then another person's like, well, you didn't do this. And it's just like, what do you want me to do? And I think that as artists, it's like it's one of the craziest things because you're looking at there's a balance of art and entertainment, right? And
Yes.
the art to me speaks for community. The entertainment speaks for consumer, right? And
Ooh,
so
I like
when you
that.
when you're creating the art, you're speaking the stories of people from your community, and like you're actually giving like you become a voice for that community in the sense of like, yo, these are the things that are going on in our neighborhood, whether it be talking about the lack of the like poor schools, whether it be looking at poverty, whether it be looking at unemployment, whether it be looking at gang violence or anything that affects the community. Like that's the art. And so when a rapper is like coming out with a song that really just articulates what the community is going through, then it's just like you get put onto this not a pedestal, but your community puts you in the sense of like we need you because of the fact that you are the voice that is going to allow for people to understand what we're going through, and hopefully that creates the conversation that allows for these things to change, you know. So in a way they kind of become like griots or
For
jollies, you know.
sure.
But then on the other hand, you have the consumers who are just like, I want to be entertained. So everything for them is a matter of was it entertaining or was it not entertaining? They may not care about the fact that you're talking about the fact that suicide rates have gone up. They may not care about the fact that you're talking about how poverty is causing all these problems and how they're not putting enough funding into schools and stuff like that. For them, they're just like, I'm not entertained, so give me something else. And to me, I think that when you're able to merge the two, where you're still able to create art, but it's entertaining, then and you're able to be successful at it, then that's like such a it's such a fine line, but it can be achieved. But not a lot of artists are able to do that, and that's why we see people usually stick with one or the other because some artists are so based on entertainment that if a social issue comes up, they avoid it like the plague. Some
Bro,
artists are so message driven that they
they take a
won't
stand.
yeah, they take it. They exactly. So it's. But if you're able to, and that's where I think like Childish Gambino, J Cole, Kendrick. But again, I think Kendrick has probably done the best job of it. You know?
For real, bro. So I have a question for you, and it's 100% inspired by this conversation. But
Yeah.
and I'm gonna draw another parallel to it as well. But do you think that the controversy isn't? It's not that it's like it's necessary to a point. It's what it seems like. Because I'm drawing a parallel to, and I don't know what your personal opinions on marijuana or weed is, but prohibition actually made the content or what the consumers are looking for out of it. It made it stronger. It made the THC contents higher. It made the CBD contents higher. It made a lot of things higher that without prohibition it wouldn't have happened. So do you think that the controversy and the struggles and the problems are potentially serving a purpose to empower more so than we ever have or could have been without it?
Yes. I will say this: I'm not a weed smoker, right?
For
But I
sure.
have a lot of friends who smoke weed, and I don't think it should be criminalized. I do think it should be legalized. I do think that, as with anything, though, it comes with moderation, right? There are proven health benefits of weed, whether you're using it as a recreational drug, where you're smoking it to relax or to ease some pain that your body might be going through. And
For sure.
what's crazy about that is that, a little side rant, we as an industrialized society spend years upon years working in situations that are not conducive to our bodies. They try to come up with ergonomics to make it easier for us to work, so we can produce more. But all these strains and aches that we put onto our body, why would you then take away something that is natural from the earth that could actually help us deal with these pains? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, to speak further to it, I think that there is, like, my family's from Jamaica, so weed is not something that you just smoke. It's something that you could actually put into a tea and
Part of the
use it
culture.
for,
Yeah.
exactly. You can use it for medicinal purposes. There's so many things that you can get from this one plant, but it's been demonized. And I think that there is a greater conversation in regards to, when you look at it from the standpoint of alcohol. I'm not really a drinker. Like, I'll drink maybe a few times a year, if that. And when I think about the amount of deaths or loss that has come from alcoholism compared to weed, and we're not talking about like cocaine, we're not talking about like some heavy chemical drug. We're talking about
Yeah.
a plant that comes from the earth that you roll up, light
Stuff
up.
stuff you'll get the same criminal charge as something that many people have been killed for. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
I do think that it does lend itself to a larger conversation in regards to why have we criminalized this thing, you know? And if there have been proven benefits to it, then why not regulate it? Which is what we're doing now. Which is, I'm happy that we've gotten to this point, but obviously there's still more work that has to be done. You know?
Oh, for sure. It's been a long time coming, that's for sure. And that's in regards to a lot of kind of like policy changes in that regards, or the things that we're calling people criminals for that don't necessarily carry the same weight as people who actually deserve to be called criminals.
Totally. And even within, and sorry, I know this is probably getting to another tangent, but
Oh no,
when we
do
look
it.
at the US and we look at the drug laws and the fact that there are people who are in jail for weed and now it's legal, and then you have corporations who are making money off that, like, that's something that needs to be addressed. And people say, well, it takes time. It's like, well, when it came to locking this person up, it didn't take time. You did it just like that. So
Yep.
maybe we need to put the money and resources into actually looking at these cases to make sure that people are set free if they were just in jail for weed. And like, it's, yeah, there's still a lot of work to get done, you know?
And here's something, this is just something that relates to me, or something that I've kind of come to in my understanding of how I even operate myself, is that unless you actually meant to offend me, I'm impossible to offend. And even if
Yeah.
you may mean to offend me, I'd probably be like, ah, bro, whatever. It is what it is. But it's the intention behind things. So are we locking up people who they're oh man. Yeah, I guess this is a tangent for
No,
another
no,
conversation.
dude. If you want, we can converse about that, because in my opinion, my whole thing is that, like, when I look at what is called the prison industrial complex, right, and I look
Yeah.
at how prisons have become for profit, and they're not set up in a way where people are actually rehabilitated for them to be able um,
To reintegrate into
to reintegrate
society.
to society, or figure out, okay, well, like, that in itself, just the whole fact that they've taken on the reintegration. But then you have to look at what is the base root of the problem in the first place.
For
why
sure.
why do we have parts of the world in which, like, you'll be in the same country, and it's not like you're dealing with like two different countries. Like, whether you look at Canada or you look at the US, when we look at the, granted, our poverty and homeless rates aren't as high as the US, but for a country as great as Canada is, we should not have these problems, right? And but then you have to look at, okay, what is the root problem of it? You look at what's happening with the indigenous people, like, what caused the problems that they're having, and what are we doing to fix those problems? And you look at how certain areas will get, and again, like, the U.S. and Canada are very different in the sense that like, there's like history, like, that has created the problems where all of a sudden you have schools that aren't getting funded. You have you have areas where like Flint, Michigan, where their water's being poisoned, and like all these things where it just creates this massive divide. And then when people go and commit crimes, you don't say, okay, well, what caused this crime? You say we need to lock this person up, and then you go and put them into a jail where then people actually have stocks and shares in this company. So then now it's like, okay, you're incentivizing the justice system to keep these people locked up for as long as possible, and to make sure that they're producing so that someone else can actually receive a check for them being in there. So it's like this whole system that just seems like it's intended to not work whatsoever, you know?
For real, bro. That's so wild. I love the way you put it as well. I just want to ask you one question, and it might not be enough to answer it one answer, but if you can, please do. But do you think that there is a granddaddy problem of them all, like the one main problem, or do you think it is a series of multiple, or do you think actually there is like a granddaddy problem?
No, I think it's a series of problems, because I think that we can't pinpoint one thing as being the only catalyst. We can't pinpoint one thing as being the only thing that is leading to this. I think that it is looking at all these different areas, because I think that's one of the biggest problems that we do have as a society, is that we get fixated on, okay, this is what we need to work on, and then we leave out
Lose
everything
sight.
else, you know?
Yeah,
And then
you're
as
right.
we're dealing with this one problem, all of a sudden we're completely ignoring these other problems and saying, well, we don't need to worry about this. And it's just like, no, like we need to take a step back and figure out a plan. And this is what's so crazy, because like I'm not involved in politics or anything like that, but I don't see how you have people who are public servants who are, and don't get me wrong, there are public servants who do a great job, but there are a lot of public servants who are complacent, and yet they still get paid off of taxpayers' dollars
Hmm.
and receive a pension when they're done, and all these benefits. And it's like, but what did you do during your time that you were supposed to be working for the people? You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I think maybe if we to put it in words, that's the difference between like providing a job and providing a service, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because if at the end of the day you're just trying to make a paycheck and you know that your money you're making six figures because you're in this role, and that's like you're bragging about and you're living the life because of it, but at the end of the day you're not providing the service that you promised to provide. And man, that's the current state of our political situation. But hey, we're gonna take that quick break I told you
Yes.
about, and we'll jump right back into it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, brother. And we're going to listen to a track by the group that Arlo Maverick was a part of, Politic Live. This track is called Executive Summary. Enjoy.
In the meantime, between time, we feature music from Maverick recording artists, Politic Live. So all of the man from the north side, south side, east side, west side, anywhere I come from right now, I saw the things set. So all of the youngsters, them the divas, the man them will know a tune right now, knows the Politic Live are going with things. Who's the last? Soldier Fire, Garris, TOA, the king of the building right now. Everybody give me some signal. Light them up!
I got $1 million name with no money in the bank. Yeah, my face on a bus, but ain't rich as you think. Cause I'd rather be broke with my soul intact than to be a rich nigga that cannot go back. Some artists lose the edge to become dull knives. Imprisoned by the fear that they fans won't like. Songs that'll challenge, songs that provoke. Now they making pop tunes and they songs is a joke. So politically correct, they instinctively neglect the possibility. The fans are critically adept. Now with all due respect, and I do mean some. What makes you so smart and your fans so dumb? Notoriety would, adaptation may be plastic. Despite poor sales, you inducted them as classics. Like here we are to usher in labels when I sucker them. Dilute the potency, just erase some numbers in now.
I'm gonna make it hard for them to ever knock me off that horse. I'm getting up to the world. I put my heart in this. You're not gonna knock me off. Make it hard for them to ever knock me off that horse. I'm getting up to the world. I put my heart in this. You're not gonna knock me off.
My work, it speaks volumes. My bank account's mute, but I have become numb to the losses of my pursuit. This music, it is a prism that I have shined through. The colors of my life's what I have shown you. But what's the artist to do when his ribs are touching? Work part-time or find himself with nothing. Held many a function, sat in on discussions on how we could raise the bar a little something. But this is not a race, no cars, I'm not stunting. I'm only trying to speak through bars like Stan Williams. Trying to reach the children who dream with eyes wide. Trying to be the change that they need in their lives. But it's not for me to the judge. The industry show me love and has given me power like the one holding the gun. The one holding his tongue is he who has none. I'll speak for the meek, our voices as one.
I'm gonna make it hard for them to ever knock me off that horse again. Leading up to the world, I put my heart in this. You're not gonna knock me off. Make it hard for them to ever knock me off that horse again. Leading up to the world, I put my heart in this. You're not gonna knock me off.
In the wee hours of the morning, when everything is still, I lay staring at the darkness, trying to find the way. Only to be plagued by roaches, scorpions, and mice. Not to mention politics. That's a big cockatrice. The light became morning, and the morning became day. Speaking for myself, I wish the darkness had stayed. The morning became evening. The sun is going down. But equality and justice is nowhere to be found. Of all these plagues, I've had my fill. Even in the wee hours of the morning, when everything is still.
I'm standing up. I'm standing up.
What is up, everyone? I'm back with Arlo Maverick. How you feeling, brother?
I'm good. Loving the conversation, man. The conversation.
Yeah, dude, it's so wild though because we're having such honest. The stuff we're getting on the record is amazing, and we can't fit it all on the record. But the stuff off the record, oh, bro,
Yeah.
you are we're on a vibe here. But let's.
Totally.
So we were talking about your past work with your group. When did you start with your group? And remind me of the name again.
Politic Live, or for short, Poly
Politic
Live.
Live.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. What year did you guys start at?
This would have been back. Notoriety drops in 2003. Actually, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, dude. It drops in 2003,
dude.
man. Yeah.
Here I was thinking like 2012, 2013.
No, 2012 was the last album. That was Ellipsis, man.
Dude.
Yeah, that was the last time was 2012 was the last album.
Holy crap. Okay. Well, then in 2015, that's appropriate to say you started putting out your first solo stuff.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And so I've got you with the first track drop as The Resume. One of the themes that you bring up in this track is, or one of the explicit lines you say is that you'd rather be broke with your soul intact. And we were talking about this off the record, and it's funny because you brought it up before I even brought it up in a different light, is how a lot of artists these days don't really put forward or talk about the conversations that we're having right now, the people who actually have the platform to reach,
Totally.
I guess, the people who need to hear it.
Totally. And essentially what I was just saying is that, like, imagine the conversations we're having. Imagine if the bigger artists that have the reach, have the platform, were actually having these conversations publicly so that their fans could actually hear it. Then it might inspire their fans to be like, okay, well, there's more that I could be doing, or what can I do or even inspire the artist to be like, yo, like maybe I need to actually address this issue because whether it's Drake, whether it's Young Thug, whether it's Little Uzi Vert, whoever it may be, and not say that these artists don't actually speak about things that are important, but there's a lot of others. There's a lot of other messages that they could be getting out there that they aren't getting out there. And part of it is due to the fact that like hip hop and music as a whole has become so corporatized to the point where you always want to stay neutral. Like everybody's trying to be Sweden, where it's just like, okay, well, I don't want to upset anybody. So let me just make music that makes people forget. And I think that we've been in a state of escapism for too long, you know?
Bro, that's exactly like what we were talking about before about like Childish Gambino and J. Cole, because they're willing to put forward that music that it is going to lose fans and is going to lose, I guess, money for the corporations.
Yeah. Totally.
Whereas like these, right? Because like imagine if Drake said something super controversial and lost half his fans. He's not losing money and fans for himself. He's losing because essentially Drake is an IP at this point.
Yeah, he is.
Oh man.
And the thing about it is that I try not to. I'll never tell an artist what to speak about, but I also want artists to understand that you only have one life to live. And when people, like, for example, like we're now living in an era where when you die, people go over your Instagram, people go over your Twitter.
Yep.
And that's, you're essentially leaving your legacy based off of these social media platforms. And what will people say about how you contributed to the world? Will it be like so let's say, for example, you pick any artist out there and they were to die today and someone would be like, okay, their Instagram was a snapshot of their life. Will it just be selfies? Will it just be them throwing money in the air? Will it just be them twerking? Or will it be a situation of like, wow, like this person here, like really said, like, imagine if Tupac had Instagram. Like,
for sure.
Imagine how different things would be. Bro. Considering the message that he had. Like, he'd probably have like, yo, like, tributes for mothers. He'd probably have like, yo, like, was just down talking with the Bloods and Crips today, and we're trying to find a way to like unite, kind of like Nipsey
in the middle.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, word, bro. It's the side of the conversation that you don't see, and it's funny because it can be taken both ways, good and bad.
Totally. And I think sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, you first, brother.
No, I was gonna say, and I don't want to take away from the work that some of these artists are doing that we're not necessarily seeing, because there are people who are making charitable donations. But I think the biggest thing is going back to what I said in the beginning of our conversation was being the change that you want to see in the world. If I'm writing a check and saying, okay, well, I gave this money to this one organization for them to help children or whatever, then what does that say to my fans if A, they don't know about this, and B, if they hear about it and they're just like, oh, well, he just wrote a check. It doesn't show any effort on my part to actually be part of the solution. It's more so, well, I'll just write a check and then that's good. Imagine having a parent who never spends time with you but always writes a check to you. It says a lot in regards to how much they actually value their time with you, based off the fact that all they do is say, oh, well, money will be able to solve this. And like, money's not solving all those issues. Like, imagine if we had some of the biggest, whether it be artists or athletes or entertainers, people that people idolize and look up to, start volunteering in the communities that they came from and saying, hey, like, yo, like, we're going to run these school programs and I'm going to be down there with the kids and teaching them so on and so forth. Yes, it does take away from your ability to be this untouchable or unattainable artist, but in removing that mystique, you now end up inspiring how many different people who now they're just like, yo, like, so-and-so came down to my school today and like we were doing like these writing tutorials. Because if you think about it, like, there's a lot of artists in the genre of hip-hop who could be considered literary greats based off of how they're able to put words together. Like, and sorry, this is going off into a total
no, that's okay, dude. Please do.
But I just mean in the sense of like, imagine if those artists were actually spending time in the communities that they came from, as opposed to like being so disconnected from the world to the point where it's just like, again, creating this whole deity complex where it's just like, you have the power and the influence to speak about certain things. You have the power and the influence to be in the community. Imagine if like all the artists like from like, let's say a Chris Brown to a Drake to a Young Thug, whoever it may be, just said, hey, you know what? Next week, we're going to go to this one community that's in one of the worst neighborhoods. And granted, they have to have security. I'm aware of that.
For sure.
But imagine they said, hey, you know, we're going to do a whole day of or a whole weekend of just picking up garbage. We're going to go in and we're going to pick up, like, imagine.
We're going to inspire.
Exactly. Imagine how, and like, not to say Drake didn't do God's plan or anything like that. And I don't want to keep harping upon him, but he's the biggest artist at the moment. So that's why I use him as an example. But I think that if more artists were actually leading by example and not doing it just because we need to make a press opportunity, but doing it in the sense of like, okay, let's be consistent with this, because with all due respect, from God's plan, have we seen anything that is outside of a paycheck that shows leading by example? You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
and again,
bro.
I'm not trying. I don't want anyone listening to this to be like, yo, this guy's hating on him, because I've had the same criticisms of Jay-Z. You know, I've had the same criticisms of I can't have them of Kendrick. I can't have them of or maybe I can, but you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying.
I 100% get what you're saying, and to anyone who even I honestly don't think you'll get those criticisms, but I could see if anyone actually feels that way. This is the first thing that comes to my mind, to be honest. And this is one of my favorite movies of all time, but the Bohemian Rhapsody movie that follows through Queen and
yes, since I've seen it,
and just everything that they did, and then ending with the Live Aid concert, that Live Aid concert, bro. Is there anything in recent history that we have had like that? Is there anything in the near future that we are going to have that's like that, where it's literally just for a cause? And it's millions and millions of people involved. It's the most popular, the people with the most reach, the people like it would be Drake would be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally.
Kendrick would be there. It would be like Coachella, but not for the fucking people. It would be Coachella, but not for the people who are attending Coachella.
Yeah. No, I agree, and maybe we need that. Maybe once we get out of this whole COVID situation, maybe that's something that the bigger artists need to look at, in the sense of what are we really doing? Because remember, this is supposed to be this moment of reflection, so on and so forth. And what's crazy about it is that I feel that we were reflective as a society for maybe a month, and then after that, it was just like once restrictions began to lift off, everyone's back to like, okay, I got to make sure I'm down at the Gucci store to let people see that I still got Gucci. I got to make sure. And it's just like, we need to get out of this whole mentality of like trying to impress people, or
it's the ego, bro.
Totally.
You need to get out of that mentality that it's I have to do something for me so other people see me as doing this thing.
Totally.
You know what it might boil down to, though, is it's people. It's not just the people trying to be perceived in a certain way, but it's the people who are doing the perceiving, the people who are watching, the fans that need to stop. Man, I don't have the answer, I guess. I wish I did, but it's the consumers that need to lax their consumerism and actually kind of understand the stuff that they are consuming and how it affects them, and not just them, but the rest of the world as well.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Because we give power to people who we consume things from, right?
Exactly.
And it's a way of voting.
It's the reason Tekashi 6ix9ine is still popping in the media.
Dude, that's a whole nother story, dog.
It's a reason why. There's a lot. I don't know why I brought the first name that popped up my head. But
of course, yeah. I'm just I said that because of the fact that like that dude is like the epitome of what hip hop should not be.
and he's like bro. Or even what's his nuts, who was he spoke at one of the Trump rallies. Lil Pump, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And here's this thing. If you can't draw the parallel from this conversation, or sorry, the listeners, if you can't draw the parallel from this conversation to those artists and what that means, especially like since we brought it into politics already, it's kind of obvious. And I hope people that are listening are keying in that if you're supporting these people, these individuals, you're supporting the ideals, you're supporting the ideas, you're supporting a whole lot of stuff that I hope you're aware that you're supporting.
But I think the weird thing about it, though, is that we are idly supporting, and I say idly supporting because of the fact that before, if I wanted to support somebody, I had to physically go out and purchase product. I had to
you find their album online, or their shirts, their hats.
You download it, so on and so forth. Now, the thing that's so fascinating about Tekashi 6ix9ine is that because of the fact that we're all just tuning in to see the train wreck, we are supporting him. And when 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 the industry sees the numbers that he's able to drum up, then that's what gets the attention, right? But and that's why I think that we have to be careful, because and that's why I use the term idly supporting, because I don't intend to support Tekashi 69 when I tune in to see who he's going to be dissing or whatever the case may be. But I am now giving him one more view that then adds to the algorithm that allows for him to all of a sudden become everywhere. And that's something that we have to be conscious of, in the sense of like, don't click on it, because the moment we click on it, we're sending a message that this is what we want. You know what I'm saying?
You said it, bro. You said my trigger word, algorithm.
Yeah.
And this is what I think people don't understand, is that or the majority of people, is that the algorithm it's not just in computers anymore. It's that view that you just talked about that you're giving to them. That's part of the algorithm. That's part of what the businesses and these companies know, is that they're feeding into the controversy. They're gonna do something one day that everybody's gonna watch.
Yeah.
And that's part of the algorithm.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like we live for that now. You know, like the everything we do is just like we're like, that's one thing I appreciate about Gary V. Is that when he talks about like just creating for the sake of creating, just doing for the sake of doing, like having a purpose behind what you do. Where so many people is just like, well, and this is what's so fascinating, is that when we look at historically great art, right? Sometimes it doesn't perform the way that it's supposed to perform, right? And so let's go all the way back to Michael Jackson's Thriller album, right?
Yeah.
Thriller, if you look at all the history that's behind it, right? There's so much content online about this, right? And I use that album because I'm not sure if it still is one of the biggest selling albums of all time.
It's iconic.
And,
it's iconic.
But it's iconic, right? And when you look at it, if Thriller would have dropped today, it would not be as iconic as it is, because the data and the algorithm of, if it was released today in the same way it was released, where I think that The Girl Is Mine was the first single, and then there was another song that was, I think Billie Jean or Beat It was the second single, and it wasn't until I think Thriller that the album really took off. So if the algorithm is looking at these first few singles that are being released and it's saying the album is a failure, based off the fact that there isn't that demand, and what the label would have probably been like, hey, you know what, Michael, like we tried, I guess we're just no more videos for the album, right? And I bring that example up in the sense that we've lost touch with actually just trusting the process, or actually just allowing for things to organically happen. If things don't happen within a certain time period, we see it as a failure and we write it off. But some of the greatest albums, like Nas's Illmatic, like that album, like I don't even think it went gold in its first year, and yet every hip-hop artist like will tell you that this album is like this is the standard for what you want to do when you want to make a classic album. But it wasn't classic in the sense of sales. It wouldn't have been classic in the sense of algorithm, you know?
For sure, man. That's so crazy.
And even Jay-Z, look at Reasonable Doubt. Reasonable Doubt wasn't a big selling album when it first came out. And yet Jay went on to become one of the biggest hip-hop artists of all time. Eminem's Infinite.
It's so wild relating all these things. Yeah, dude. No, it's weird. It's weird because you think about all these things that they're historically, it's history, right?
Yeah.
These are we're dating things from like 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But how it relates to this day is, oh man, that's so wild. Because you're right, you're 100%. 90% of those albums released back then would flop to this day for so many different reasons. 90% of the artists that made it pre-2000 would flop to this day for the reasons of whatever the algorithms are right now.
Yeah.
And it's not, and like I said, it's not necessarily the algorithms within the computers. It's the algorithms of how we operate as people.
Totally, because keep in mind that as a person who listens to music, some people love the discovery process, right? So they're like, "Yo, I don't care what the artwork looks like. I don't care what everyone else is saying. Like, I'm interested.
I don't care what the artist does in his personal time.
Exactly. I want to hear the music, you know? Where some people are just like, well, I need great artwork. I need for everyone to be talking about it. I need for a friend to recommend it. And at one point in time, it's just like we would just like record stores would be places that people would just go to and just be like, hey, you're talking to somebody who works at the record store, like, hey, what do you recommend? What's new, blah, blah, blah. And you would spend time listening to the music, where now it's like, I feel like we treat music more as a commodity. And it's just like, okay, we only want what's popular. everything else, I'll wait till it becomes popular, then I'll care about it, you know? Which is really unfortunate because like we could be sleeping on, going back to the what you said earlier, like what if how many times have we killed Jesus? How many times have we killed so and so, right? How many times
Did we say that off the record though?
we said, oh man, I think we might have said it off the record.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember though. But
that's cool.
But you get the point. You get the point.
Let me give the skinny for the listeners though. What we were talking about before about that is like the people who fuck. How did we even say it? We're talking about the people who don't get the opportunity to even make a statement, but could have caused the changes that we could have seen in the world. So how many times have we killed the person who could have cured cancer? How many times have we killed Jesus Christ, the person who would have like made those differences? But yeah, sorry to go back to what you were talking about.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing for music. Like, how many great artists have we overlooked that could have done so much more as far as where music could be taken to? You know,
For sure.
like even Outkast. Like I was talking about this the other day when Outkast dropped their first album. Like, here's an album that where hip hop was at the time, most people were just like, what the hell is this? You know? But how many years later, you look at how many people are inspired by it. Look at Kanye West's 808 and Heartbreaks. Like, that's an album that people are just like, what the hell is this guy doing? And yet, how many years later, the album has impacted and changed the sound of hip hop and just popular music as a whole. And like, I think sometimes we because of the fact that like we don't allow for time, like the moment somebody drops something, we say it's a classic, right? And we don't actually look at it from the standpoint of like, yo, like a classic should also take into account its ability to age over time. Some music comes out
to influence the genre as a whole.
Exactly, you know? And like, if an album just dropped last night and I love every song on it, I don't know how well it's going to age and I don't know what the impact and influence it's going to have. So I got to give it at least 5 or 10 years. And then as I look back in retrospect, I could say that's a classic. But it's hard for me to actually call something a classic in the moment that it's in because some albums, when you go back and listen to them, they feel specific to that time period, and not just specific because of the sounds that were made, but they feel specific because it hasn't aged well. It just sounds really bad how many years later, you know? It wasn't something that was timeless, you know?
Man. This reminds me of a quote, and I'm going to drop it right now, even though I don't know the source, but it goes, a man never steps into the same river twice because he is no longer the same man, and that is no longer the same river.
Damn, dude. Damn.
Isn't it? It's kind of what we're talking on, ain't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh, man. I wish I knew the source right now, but anybody listening can find it out. But yeah, doesn't that kind of speak to what we're talking about?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Is that even the listener, if you hear a song and you're like, oh, that's a classic, 5 years from now, you could listen back to it and you'll be like, oh, man, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Or even if you wrote that song, you know what I mean? If you wrote a song, right?
Yeah.
But we're stepping in overtime, and I do want to touch on specifically some of your tracks. Is there anything you want to say on what we just talked about real quick?
Nah, it's all good. It's all good.
Okay, it's so funny. We talked about your first track, The Resume, and now we're gonna just jump into one of your more recent tracks. I guess we did talk a little bit about it, but Black Every Day, bro. This is a track that is obviously, maybe I shouldn't say obviously, but to me it seems like it's inspired by current events. It's inspired by years and years and years of emotion and history. And one of the lines, actually, I'll let you talk. I know here, one of the lines that I pulled out of it that spoke a lot to me, even though it's not really directly related to me, but it just reframed something in my brain, was they want to walk like our queens, be strong as our queens, but don't want the struggle that developed those genes.
Yeah.
I get shivers when I hear things like that, bro, because people don't think about that. People don't think about what caused culture, what caused slang, what caused hip hop.
Yes.
It wasn't an idea that was born overnight. It was like, oh man, it was constant erosion or constant struggle and constant trying to climb out of a fucking hole.
Yeah. Nah, dude, you summed it up, man. you summed it up, man.
Well, bro, I want to hear your, like, you talk about it as well, because like the way you phrase it here, man, I've heard it before in similar ways, but just like even putting it, they don't want the struggle that developed those genes. It says it so vividly, bro.
Well, that's actually a double entendre in the sense of the struggle that developed those genes, in the sense of a black woman's body being like
booty.
this booty being something that everybody wants, like so many women want that voluptuousness. They want that, but then they don't want the struggle that gets into that. But then it's also the genes, in the sense of like you're looking at people who are, and whether you're looking at like continental Africans or people who have come to the diaspora, you're looking at years and years of struggle and things that are passed down from generation. And you're looking at conditions, you're looking at treatment, you're looking at just so much history. And the unfortunate thing about it is that that line speaks towards the fact that there's a struggle that Black people as a whole have to go through that gives the resilience, that gives the strength. And everybody, we'll just say everybody. A lot of people look at that and they're just like, well, I want to be that strong. And it's just like, but do you know what it took to get to that? Like when we see...
Did you look at the history?
Exactly. Did you look at the history? Did you look at the pain that had to get to the point of being that strong? You know, like that's not something that just comes overnight, as you said. And even the sad thing about it is that, and I tried to create balance within that verse, is that let me speak towards some of the struggles, but then also let's speak towards some of the beauty that's also there, because of the fact that like there's a history as it relates to Africans that is there before colonialism, but we never talk about pre-colonial Africa. We always seem to start from the point of Europeans coming to the shores and transporting us into the Caribbean, into South America, into America or North America. But there's a history that's before that, and that history is something that I feel that if it was taught more in public schools, then you'd have a lot more Black kids who would be proud of who they are, as opposed to sometimes feeling like, okay, well, the only thing that we see about ourselves is slavery, and then we overcame that, but we're still struggling. Where it's just like you look at and the weird thing about it too is that Black people weren't the only people, or I should say Africans weren't the only group of people to be enslaved. There were,
for sure. And that's why I'm glad you said everybody at the beginning of this.
Yeah, because when you think about it, it's just like you've had the Irish that were enslaved, because even my family's from Jamaica, and the original people that were brought to Jamaica to actually do the work on the plantations for sugarcane were the Irish. But we don't look at Irish people and their ancestors and call them slaves, but we look at people of African descent and we say, yeah, your ancestors were slaves. And it's just like, no, they were people who were in bondage. They were people who were enslaved. Russia had slaves. There's so many different groups of people who were enslaved, but for some reason, like our community is the one that we attach that to it. And part of the music I create, while it doesn't just deal with issues affecting the Black community, I want to be able to create positive images. I want to be able to create, and I want to be able to empower my community. I want to be able to allow them to see that like we are more than what people show of us, and also show other people that we're more than what people should see as well too. You know? And part of that goes back to being involved behind the scenes in addition to being in front of the camera. Like I'm not sure if you've seen the videos that I released in 2020, but every one of them had a Black lead. Right? Every one of them showed Black people in a positive light, and showed Black people as diverse, as opposed to being just people who play basketball or do this or do that. Like there's a scene in Black Everyday, the music video, where you see my drummer B-Boye skateboarding, and it's just like, yo, Black people can skateboard as well too, you know. So I wanted to show just a little bit of diversity within who we are, and also just show things that allow for people both in the community and outside the community to look at these things and be like, wow, like Black is beautiful, you know?
Ah, man, I love that, and I love the message, and I love the way you're putting it forward, dude. This entire conversation has been phenomenal, bro. But unfortunately, we are pushing our time here.
Damn, sorry, dog.
No, it's no issue, dude. Like, because for me, man, I eat, sleep, and breathe these types of conversations. I want to get this information out there. I want people to consume this. I want people to think about it. I want this information to be like not forced into people's minds, but I want them to chew on it.
Totally.
So the more it can happen, the more beauty is going to be created as a result. But is there anything that you want to say as like kind of a final sign off to anybody who's listening, just to kind of end the podcast here?
No, I just want to say thank you for reaching out and like making this conversation possible. I look forward to people listening to it, and hopefully they'll check out some music. We've got some more thought-provoking music coming in 2020 or 2021. Sorry,
New
year. So fresh though. Still stuck in 2020.
So fresh. No, word, bro. It feels like January 2020 to me, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, we got what, how many months taken away from us, so we can make an extension.
I guess that's word, bro. Thank you so much for joining me today, Arlo Maverick. I really appreciate it, bro. This has been you've inspired my work for the rest of the day. I'll tell you that.
Thank you. And I appreciate you reaching out as well too, man. Like the work that you do is inspiring as well, and I look forward to seeing more of your podcast on YouTube.
Hey, and that's where, brother. All right, thank you so much, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Peace out. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the ReEvolve Media Revolution podcast. We hope you enjoyed that interview with Arlo Maverick. If you want to learn a little bit more about him and connect to some of his socials, head on down to www.reevolvemedia.com/Arlo Maverick. And we are going to listen to another track by him. This one is titled Black Every Day. Enjoy and take care.
Statements that truly made me ask where this newfound wokeness. Some folks was tone deaf, talking like publicists with well-crafted slogans. Suddenly the veil that once covered their eyes was finally absent, gone with the attachments to feeling comfortable, denying black trauma. They was ready to march, they was ready for drama, yelling fuck the police. The chance ran clear, they recognized their privilege and told us they were there. But guilt is an emotion that you can't trust. It comes and goes like a man's lust. 2 weeks later, the status quo. Riddle me this, where the tangents go. The outrageous ceased, you were absent, bro. But unlike you, I can't escape my blackness, yo.
Cause Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday, I'm black every day. I'm black every day. I'm black every day. I'm black every day. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday, I'm black every day. I'm black every day. I'm black every day. I'm black every day.
Yeah, the most imitated, but least appreciated. The most appropriated, but rarely compensated. Black is beautiful, how is that not a fact when Karen and Becky want a black girl as they wanna walk like our queens, be strong as our queens, but don't want the struggle that developed those genes. Black is resilient, how's that not true? Name another group that's something what we do. Gave you gas mask and light bulb filament. Needless to say, black folks are instrument to develop, and yet you on a residence to be imprisonment. What are you, an idiot? Think of black inventors that changed the world, yet your silence when cops kill our boys and girls. What if the cure that was Sandra Bland? Your privilege is a weapon and it's killing us, man.
Cause